The blood on Vaughn Prescott's hands had dried 3 days ago, but he could still feel the weight of the blade that had caused it, still hear the screams of men who had once called him brother. War had a way of staying with you, clinging to your bones like winter frost that never quite melted. And as he walked the dusty frontier road toward the settlement of Greymark, he wondered if he would ever truly leave the battlefield behind. The mercenary wagon appeared first as a cloud of dust on the horizon, then as a ramshackle collection of weathered wood and iron, drawn by 4 horses that looked as tired as Vaughn felt. He stepped to the side of the road, intending to let it pass, but something made him pause. Perhaps it was the way the driver's eyes slid away from his own, or the nervous tension in the shoulders of the 2 guards riding alongside. Perhaps it was simply that a man who had spent 15 years learning to read danger could smell it like smoke on the wind. As the wagon rolled past, Vaughn heard it. A low, pained sound that might have been a groan or a whimper, muffled but unmistakable. The wagon's cargo was covered with canvas, tied down tight, but through a gap near the back, Vaughn caught a glimpse of green skin and iron chains. He kept walking, telling himself it was not his concern. The war was over. He had resigned his commission, walked away from everything he had known, and he owed nothing to anyone anymore. Whatever business those mercenaries were conducting, whatever cargo they carried, it had nothing to do with him. Vaughn made it another 50 paces before he stopped. The sound repeated in his memory, that low groan of pain, and he found himself thinking of other sounds. Wounded soldiers calling for help on battlefields, their voices growing weaker as the hours passed. The cries of civilians caught in the crossfire of conflicts they had never asked to be part of. He had heard those sounds too many times, and each time he had failed to respond, a piece of him had hardened a little more, turned a little colder. He looked down at his hands, calloused and scarred from a lifetime of holding weapons. These hands had taken life. Perhaps it was time they saved one instead. The decision made, Vaughn turned and began following the wagon. He kept his distance, staying far enough back that the mercenaries would not notice him immediately, but close enough to track their progress. The road wound through sparse woodland, the kind of borderland territory where settlements were few, and the rule of law was more suggestion than certainty. After 2 hours, the wagon turned off the main road onto a narrower track that led deeper into the trees. Vaughn waited until the wagon disappeared around a bend, then followed. The tracks were easy to read in the soft earth, and as the sun began its descent toward the horizon, he heard voices ahead. Moving carefully, he crept closer until he could see a clearing where the mercenaries had made camp. The wagon sat at the center of the clearing, its cargo still covered. 3 men sat around a fire, passing a bottle between them and laughing at some crude joke. 2 more stood guard near the wagon, though their attention seemed focused more on the bottle than on their surroundings. Vaughn circled the camp, keeping to the shadows beneath the trees, until he reached a position behind the wagon. From here, he could see what the canvas had hidden. 5 orcs, all female, all bound in heavy chains that looked designed more for torture than simple restraint. The chains were too tight, cutting into green skin, and the orcs were positioned in ways that forced them into uncomfortable, painful postures. One appeared unconscious, her head lolling forward against her chest. Another had dried blood crusting the side of her face from a wound above her eye. The youngest of them, barely more than a girl by the look of her, was the one making the sounds Vaughn had heard. Her eyes were squeezed shut, and tears tracked through the dirt on her cheeks as she tried to shift position against chains that allowed no mercy. Something hot and sharp twisted in Vaughn's chest. He had seen prisoners of war treated better than this. He had seen enemy soldiers afforded more dignity. Whatever these orcs had done, whatever crimes real or imagined had led them to this wagon, they did not deserve this. He waited until full dark had fallen, and the mercenaries had finished their bottle and started on a second. The guards near the wagon had joined their companions by the fire, lured by the promise of liquor, and the assumption that 5 chained orcs posed no threat. Their mistake. Vaughn moved like smoke through the darkness, his years of military training serving him well. He reached the wagon without a sound, drew the knife from his belt, and began working on the canvas ties. The fabric fell away with barely a whisper, and then he was face to face with 5 pairs of eyes that gleamed in the starlight. The nearest orc, a woman with a scar that ran from her temple to her jaw, tensed as if preparing to shout. Vaughn pressed a finger to his lips, then pointed toward the mercenaries by the fire. The orc woman studied him for a long moment, her expression suspicious and confused, but she remained silent. The chains were secured with heavy padlocks, far too complex to pick quickly in the dark. Vaughn studied them, calculating distances and angles, then made his decision. He would have to deal with the mercenaries first. Moving back through the shadows, Vaughn circled around to approach the fire from the opposite side. The men were drunk now, their voices loud and their movements uncoordinated. The element of surprise would be crucial. He counted his advantages: darkness, sobriety, training, and the fact that he had no intention of fighting fair. The first guard went down without a sound, Vaughn's arm wrapping around his throat from behind and squeezing until the man went limp. He lowered the unconscious mercenary to the ground, then moved to the next. The second guard realized something was wrong just before Vaughn reached him, but the man's drunken attempt to draw his sword was far too slow. A solid punch to the jaw sent him sprawling. The remaining 3 mercenaries scrambled to their feet, finally realizing they were under attack. One managed to draw a blade before Vaughn was on him, deflecting the wild swing and delivering a knee to the man's stomach that doubled him over. A second strike to the back of the head finished the job. The last 2 came at Vaughn together, more coordinated despite their intoxication. Steel flashed in the firelight as one swung a sword while the other circled, trying to flank him. Vaughn gave ground, letting them think they had the advantage, then surged forward between them. He caught the swordsman's wrist, twisted hard, and sent the weapon spinning away into the darkness. A brutal elbow strike to the face took that mercenary out of the fight. The final guard proved more skilled than his companions, managing to land a glancing blow across Vaughn's ribs before Vaughn closed the distance and grappled with him. They struggled for several seconds before Vaughn managed to get behind the man and apply a chokehold similar to the one that had dropped the first guard. This mercenary fought harder, but the outcome was inevitable. Within moments, he too collapsed unconscious. Vaughn stood among the fallen mercenaries, breathing hard, his ribs aching where the blade had connected. Not his finest work, but effective. He quickly searched the unconscious men until he found a ring of keys on the belt of the one who had been driving the wagon. Back at the wagon, 5 pairs of eyes watched him approach with expressions that ranged from hope to disbelief. Vaughn held up the keys. The scarred orc woman nodded toward the youngest first, the one who had been crying in pain. It took several tries to find the right keys, but eventually, Vaughn managed to unlock the chains binding the young orc. She gasped as the pressure released, nearly collapsing forward before Vaughn caught her. Up close, he could see she was even younger than he had thought, probably not more than 18 or 19. Her tusks were small and delicate, barely protruding past her lower lip, and her dark eyes were wide with shock and pain. "Easy," Vaughn said quietly. You are safe now." The girl stared at him as if he had spoken in a language she did not understand. Perhaps, in a way, he had. In a world where humans and orcs were enemies more often than not, kindness from a human stranger must seem as foreign as any tongue. He moved to the next orc, then the next, working methodically through the locks until all 5 were free. The last to be released was the scarred woman, who rubbed her wrists as soon as the chains fell away and fixed Vaughn with a penetrating stare. "Why?" she asked, her voice rough from disuse but clear enough. "Because it was wrong," Vaughn said simply. "We are orcs. We are supposed to be your enemies. I have had enough of enemies." Vaughn turned away, gathering the chains and throwing them into the back of the wagon. "Can you walk? We need to move before they wake up." "Where would we go?" The scarred woman stood, helping the youngest orc to her feet. The others were already moving, though the one with the head wound swayed dangerously. "We have no clan. That is why they could take us. We were exiles, wanderers. They found us on the road and saw profit in chains." Vaughn understood what she was not saying. Orcs without clans were vulnerable, outcasts with no protection and no home. These 5 had likely been cast out for various reasons, left to survive on their own in a world that saw them as monsters. The mercenaries had probably planned to sell them as slaves in one of the border territories where such trade still happened in the shadows, or worse, simply use them for entertainment until they broke. "I have a place," Vaughn heard himself say, the words surprising him even as he spoke them. "It is not much, just a homestead I inherited from my uncle, but it is remote and there is room. You can come with me until you figure out what comes next." The orcs exchanged glances, a silent conversation passing between them. The scarred woman seemed to be their leader and the others waited for her decision. She studied Vaughn for a long moment, her expression unreadable. "You would bring 5 orc women to your home. Let us stay under your roof. No human does such a thing. Most humans have not done a lot of the things I have done." Vaughn retrieved his pack from where he had left it in the trees. "But I am offering anyway. Take it or leave it. Either way, we need to move. Those men will wake eventually, and when they do, they will be angry." "We will come," the scarred woman said finally. "But know this, human, if this is a trick, if you mean us harm, we will fight. We may be injured and unarmed, but we are not helpless." "Fair enough." Vaughn started toward the road. "My name is Vaughn Prescott. Former captain in the King's army, current owner of a failing farm in the middle of nowhere." "What should I call you?" "Cora," the scarred woman said. She gestured to the others as they followed. "The one with the head wound is Mira. The tall one is Shala. The quiet one is Rena. And the young one is Zara." "Zara." Vaughn glanced back at the young orc who was limping along at the rear of the group, still rubbing her wrists where the chains had cut deepest. She noticed him looking and quickly averted her eyes, as if ashamed to be seen in her current state. They made slow progress through the night, the orcs' injuries and exhaustion limiting their pace. Vaughn led them away from the road, taking game trails and paths through the forest that would be harder to track. He did not think the mercenaries would pursue immediately, not after being so thoroughly defeated, but he had not survived 15 years of war by underestimating his enemies. As dawn began to paint the sky with pale light, they stopped to rest beside a small stream. The orcs drank deeply, splashing water on their faces and cleaning wounds as best they could. Vaughn shared what little food he had in his pack, some dried meat, hard bread, and a few wrinkled apples. It was not much, divided 5 ways, but the orcs ate with the quiet efficiency of people who had known real hunger. Zara sat apart from the others, her back against a tree, her eyes closed. In the growing light, Vaughn could see the full extent of what the chains had done to her. Deep red marks circled her wrists and ankles, some broken open and weeping. Her clothing, already tattered, was stained with blood and dirt. A purple bruise darkened her left cheek, and he suspected there were more injuries hidden beneath her clothes. "She is not as strong as the others," Cora said quietly, following Vaughn's gaze. "Zara was cast out from her clan only 2 months ago. She has not learned how to survive on the road yet. The rest of us, we have been exiles for years. We know how to endure. Why was she cast out so young?" Cora's expression hardened. For showing mercy to a human child. There was a raid on a frontier settlement. Zara was expected to participate to prove herself as a warrior. Instead, she hid a human girl and helped her escape. Her clan saw this as weakness, as betrayal. They cast her out and told her never to return. Vaughn looked at Zara with new understanding. She had sacrificed everything for an act of compassion, had been punished for choosing kindness over cruelty. How terrifying it must have been for her when the mercenaries found her, when the humans she had once helped turned out to be monsters themselves. "How much farther to your home?" Cora asked. "2 more days, maybe 3 at this pace." "The homestead is north of here in the foothills near the Greywood Forest. Isolated, but that will work in our favor. Fewer people means fewer questions." "And what will you tell people if they ask why you have 5 orcs living with you?" Vaughn had not thought that far ahead. He shrugged. "I will figure something out. Maybe I will tell them you are farmhands. Maybe I will tell them it is none of their business. That will start rumors. Humans talk. They will say you are a traitor, that you have turned against your own kind. Let them talk." Vaughn stood, shouldering his pack. "I have been called worse things." They traveled through the day, taking frequent breaks to rest. By afternoon, Mira's head wound had begun bleeding again, and Shala had to help support her as they walked. Vaughn kept watch for any signs of pursuit, but the forest remained quiet except for birdsong and the rustle of wind through leaves. That night, they made camp in a small cave Vaughn knew from his boyhood explorations of the region. He built a careful fire near the entrance, positioned so the smoke would dissipate quickly rather than building up inside. The orcs collapsed almost immediately, exhaustion overwhelming their wariness. Even Cora allowed herself to sleep. Though Vaughn noticed, she positioned herself between him and the others, one hand resting on a large rock that could serve as a weapon if needed. Only Zara remained awake, sitting near the fire and staring into the flames with an expression of such profound sadness that Vaughn felt his chest tighten. He settled down across from her, poking at the fire with a stick. "You should rest," he said gently. "Tomorrow will be another long day." "I cannot sleep." Her voice was soft, almost a whisper. "Every time I close my eyes I see them, the mercenaries, the chains. I feel the pain again. That will fade in time. The mind has a way of healing just like the body. It just takes longer. You speak as someone who knows." Vaughn nodded slowly. "I do. I have seen and done things in the war that visit me in my dreams sometimes. Things I wish I could forget but never will." Zara looked at him properly for the first time, really looked at him, studying his face in the firelight. "You are not like other humans I have met. I could say the same about you." Vaughn offered her a small smile. "Not many orcs would sacrifice their entire life to save a human child." She flinched, surprised. "Cora told you," she did. "What you did was incredibly brave. It was foolish." "My clan was right to cast me out. I am weak." "No." Vaughn's voice was firm. "Mercy is not weakness. Compassion is not weakness. The ability to choose kindness even when it costs you everything, that is the strongest thing a person can do." Zara's eyes glistened with tears. "Then why does it hurt so much? Why does being strong feel like breaking?" "Because real strength usually does hurt. because choosing to be good in a cruel world means carrying wounds that others will never understand. Vaughn leaned forward, meeting her gaze. But those wounds are proof that you are more than what the world tried to make you. You are proof that there is hope, even in the darkest places. A tear slipped down Zara's cheek, tracking through the dirt. She wiped it away quickly, as if ashamed of the emotion. I do not know if I can be that proof. I do not know if I am strong enough. You already are. You survived. You kept going even when you had every reason to give up. That takes more strength than any battle. They sat in silence for a while, the fire crackling between them. Eventually, Zara's eyes began to droop, exhaustion finally overwhelming her fear. She slumped against the cave wall, her breathing evening out into the rhythm of sleep. Vaughn added more wood to the fire and settled back against the stone, intending to keep watch through the night. But as the hours passed and the cave remained peaceful, he found his own eyes growing heavy. Just for a moment, he told himself. Just a brief rest. He woke to morning light streaming through the cave entrance and the smell of cooking meat. Cora crouched by the fire, roasting something on a makeshift spit. She glanced at him as he stirred. "You snore," she said without preamble. "I have been told." Vaughn sat up, wincing at the stiffness in his back. "Where did you get that? Rena is a good hunter, even injured." "She caught 3 rabbits while you were sleeping." Cora turned the spit. "We may be exiles, but we are not helpless. We can provide for ourselves." "I never thought you were helpless." Vaughn accepted the piece of cooked meat she offered him. "Thank you. Do not thank us. We are in your debt." "This is only a small repayment." They ate quickly and resumed their journey. The terrain grew hillier as they traveled north, the flatlands giving way to rolling slopes covered in pine and oak. Vaughn's homestead was still a day and a half away, but they were making better time now that the Orcs had rested and eaten. Late in the afternoon, they encountered their first other travelers. A merchant's caravan approached from the north, 3 wagons laden with goods and protected by 6 guards. Vaughn saw them first and gestured for the Orcs to move into the trees, out of sight. The last thing they needed was a confrontation, but one of the guards had sharp eyes. He noticed the movement in the trees and called out a warning. The caravan stopped, the guards forming a protective line with weapons drawn. "Show yourselves," the lead guard shouted. "Come out slow and with hands visible." Vaughn had no choice. He stepped out onto the road, hands raised. "Just a traveler, I mean no harm." The guard relaxed slightly, seeing only a single man. "Where are you headed?" "North to my homestead. I am returning from business in the south." "Alone?" The guard's eyes narrowed. "I could have sworn I saw others with you. You saw shadows. The trees play tricks on the eyes." "Maybe." The guard did not look convinced, but he also did not look inclined to investigate further. "Be careful on the road. There have been reports of Orc bandits in the area. Stay alert." "I will. Thank you for the warning." The caravan moved on, and Vaughn waited until they were well out of sight before returning to the trees. The Orcs emerged from their hiding places, Cora shaking her head. "This is how it will be wherever we go. Hiding, running, always afraid of being seen. Only until we reach the homestead. After that you will not have to hide." "You say that, but you do not know. What if your neighbors see us? What if word spreads that you harbor Orcs? Then I will deal with it." Vaughn started walking again. One problem at a time. They reached the homestead late the following evening, emerging from the forest to find a small collection of buildings nestled in a narrow valley. The main house was larger than Vaughn remembered from his childhood visits, a sturdy 2-story structure built from logs and stone. A barn stood nearby, along with several smaller outbuildings. Fields stretched out behind the house, currently overgrown with weeds after a year of neglect. "This is yours." Zara asked, staring at the house with wide eyes. It is now. My uncle died last year and left it to me in his will. I have not had time to do much with it yet. The house was dusty and musty from being closed up, but structurally sound. Vaughn opened windows to let in fresh air while the orcs explored cautiously, as if afraid the offer might be withdrawn at any moment. The main floor held a large common room with a fireplace, a kitchen, and a small study. Upstairs were 4 bedrooms, more than enough space for everyone. You can choose your rooms, Vaughn said. There is a well behind the house for water, and I think my uncle left some supplies in the cellar. It is not much, but it is safe. Cora touched the wall as if testing its solidity. Why are you doing this? Truly? No human helps orcs without expecting something in return. I expect nothing except that you not murder me in my sleep. Vaughn managed a tired smile. Beyond that, you are free to stay as long as you need and leave whenever you wish. You are either the kindest man I have ever met or the most foolish. Probably both. Vaughn headed for the stairs. I am going to sleep for about 12 hours. Make yourselves at home. We will figure out the details tomorrow. He climbed to the 2nd floor, chose the room that had been his uncle's, and collapsed on the bed without bothering to undress. Within moments, he was asleep, his body finally surrendering to the exhaustion of the past few days. When Vaughn woke, sunlight was streaming through the window and he could hear sounds from downstairs. He descended to find the common room transformed. The dust had been cleared, the fireplace was burning, and the smell of cooking food filled the air. The 5 orcs were bustling around the kitchen, working together with the kind of practiced efficiency that spoke of long familiarity. Zara noticed him first. She had cleaned up, washing away the dirt and blood, and her injuries looked better in the natural light. She still moved carefully, favoring her left side, but there was more life in her eyes than there had been before. We found food in the cellar, she said, and eggs in the barn. I hope you do not mind that we cooked. Mind, I am grateful. Vaughn joined them at the table, accepting the plate Mira handed him. The food was simple but well prepared. Eggs, some kind of porridge, and fresh bread that must have been made that morning. This is incredible, thank you. It is the least we can do. Cora sat across from him. We discussed it this morning. If you will allow us to stay, we want to help with the farm. All of us have experience with different types of work. Rena and Shala can hunt and tend animals. Mira knows about growing herbs and vegetables. I have worked in fields before. And Zara can cook and manage a household. Vaughn looked around the table at 5 faces watching him with a mixture of hope and determination. These were not helpless refugees looking for charity. They were offering partnership, a fair exchange of labor for shelter. It was more than he had expected, more than he had any right to ask. I accept, he said, but on one condition. This is your home now, not just a place you are staying. You are not servants or farmhands, you are equals here. Understood. Cora studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Understood. Over the following weeks, the homestead transformed. The orcs threw themselves into the work with a dedication that humbled Vaughn. Rena and Shala cleared and plowed the overgrown fields, their orc strength making quick work of tasks that would have taken Vaughn days. Mira established a garden, planting vegetables and herbs with the care of someone who understood the language of growing things. Cora repaired the barn and outbuildings, revealing a talent for carpentry that she claimed to have learned from a human craftsman in her youth. And Zara made the house a home. She cleaned every corner, repaired the furniture, sewed new curtains from fabric she found in the attic. She cooked meals that filled the house with warmth and wonderful smells. She transformed the sterile structure into a place that felt lived in, cared for, loved. Vaughn found himself watching her more and more often. The way she hummed while she worked, the way she smiled when something turned out well, the way she paused sometimes to stare out the window at the mountains in the distance, her expression wistful and distant. She was healing, both physically and emotionally, and watching that transformation was like watching spring arrive after a long winter. He tried not to think about what that meant, tried not to examine the warmth in his chest when she laughed, or the way his day felt brighter when she entered a room. She was an orc, he was human. Such things were not done, they were not even supposed to be possible. But late at night, lying in his bed and listening to the sounds of the house settling around him, Vaughn could not deny what was growing in his heart. 2 months after their arrival, the first real problem arose. Vaughn had gone into the nearby town of Greymark for supplies, a trip he had been putting off but could no longer avoid. The town was small, barely more than a collection of shops and houses clustered around a central square, but it was the closest source of goods they could not produce themselves. He was loading sacks of flour into his wagon when he noticed the stairs. The whispers. A group of men stood near the tavern, talking in low voices and glancing in his direction. Vaughn ignored them, finishing his loading and preparing to leave, but one of the men broke away from the group and approached. "Prescott, is it?" The man was older, with gray in his beard and the weathered look of a farmer. "You are the one living in the old Fletcher place." "I am. Is there a problem?" "Depends. We have been hearing stories, rumors about you keeping orcs on your land. Tell me those rumors are wrong." Vaughn met the man's gaze steadily. "I have farmhands working my land. What they are is none of your concern. It is everyone's concern if you are harboring monsters. Orcs cannot be trusted. They are violent, savage creatures. Having them so close to town puts us all in danger. The only danger here is to your sense of hospitality." Vaughn climbed into his wagon. "The women working my land have done nothing to harm anyone. They keep to themselves and cause no trouble." "Women!" Another man joined the conversation, his expression ugly. "You have female orcs living in your house, sleeping under your roof. What kind of unnatural things are you doing out there?" Anger flared hot in Vaughn's chest, but he forced it down. Starting a fight in the middle of town would only make things worse. "I am doing the work of running a farm. Now, if you will excuse me, I have a long ride home." He urged the horses forward, leaving the men behind, but he could feel their eyes on his back all the way out of town. The encounter left a bitter taste in his mouth, and as he drove home, he found himself dreading the conversation he would need to have with the orcs. They were waiting when he arrived, having seen his approach from the fields. One look at his face told them something was wrong. "The town knows," he said without preamble. "I do not know how word spread, but they know you are here, and they are not happy about it." Cora's expression darkened. "We should leave. We have brought trouble to you." "No." Vaughn began unloading the wagon with more force than necessary. "You have brought nothing but help and hard work. If the town has a problem, that is their issue, not yours. You do not understand what you are risking," Zara said quietly. She had come out of the house, wiping flour from her hands. "Humans have killed orcs for less than this. And humans who help orcs are treated as traitors." "Then I will be a traitor." Vaughn looked at each of them in turn. "I am not sending you away because some small-minded fools cannot see past their prejudices. You have as much right to be here as anyone." "This will not end well," Cora warned. "Once humans decide something, they do not change their minds easily." "Neither do I." The standoff with the town simmered for another month. Vaughn made 2 more trips to Greymark, each time encountering more hostility. On the second visit, someone threw a rock at his wagon. On the third, he found that several merchants refused to sell to him at all. He began making longer trips to other towns, buying supplies from settlements that had not yet heard the rumors. It was inconvenient and time-consuming, but he refused to give the people of Greymark the satisfaction of seeing him back down. Meanwhile, life on the homestead continued. The fields produced a good harvest. The animals Rena and Shala had acquired thrived under their care. Mira's garden provided fresh vegetables and herbs. The work was hard but rewarding, and despite the tension with the outside world, Vaughn found himself happier than he had been in years. Part of that happiness, he had to admit, was because of Zara. She had fully recovered from her injuries, and the frightened girl he had freed from those chains had blossomed into a confident young woman. She smiled more now, laughed easily, and had developed a gentle teasing humor that she directed at him whenever he did something particularly foolish, which seemed to be often. He had fallen in love with her. There was no other way to describe the feeling. The way his heart lifted when she entered a room, the way he found excuses to work near her, the way her happiness mattered more to him than his own. He loved her, and the knowledge both thrilled and terrified him, because what could he possibly offer her? He was a scarred veteran with a small farm and a town that hated him. She was young and beautiful and deserved so much more than a life hiding in the wilderness, always looking over her shoulder for the next threat. She deserved a real future, with possibilities and hope. But when she looked at him, her dark eyes warm and bright, Vaughn dared to wonder if maybe, just maybe, she felt something too. The moment came on a cool evening in late autumn. Vaughn was chopping firewood behind the house, preparing for the coming winter, when Zara brought him water. She had done this many times before, but today felt different somehow. The air seemed charged with something unspoken. "Thank you," Vaughn said, taking the cup and drinking deeply. Zara did not leave. She stood watching him, her expression thoughtful. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why did you really free us? That day with the mercenaries. The truth this time, not the answer you gave Cora." Vaughn set down the cup, considering his words carefully. "Because I looked at you, at all of you, and I saw people. Not orcs, not monsters. Just people who were suffering and needed help. And I have spent too much of my life causing suffering. I wanted to do something different for once." "That is a good answer." Zara moved closer, her tusks catching the fading sunlight. "But I think there is more. I think you saw yourself in us. Wounded, cast out, looking for a place to belong." She was right, and the realization struck Vaughn with the force of a physical blow. He had been running when he found them, fleeing from memories of war and violence, searching for some kind of redemption he was not even sure existed. In freeing them, he had been trying to free himself. "Maybe," he admitted. "Maybe I did. Then we are the same, you and I." Zara reached out, her hand hovering near his arm but not quite touching. "Both of us cast out from where we belonged, both of us trying to find something new. I am not sure I have found it yet." "Have you not?" Her hand finally made contact, her fingers warm against his forearm. "This place, this life we are building, is this not what you were searching for?" "I thought so. But lately I have been wondering if I am still missing something, someone." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Zara's eyes widened slightly and her hand tightened on his arm. "Vaughn," she whispered, "we should not. It is forbidden. Humans and orcs, we are not meant to be together." "I know. But since when have either of us cared about what we are supposed to do?" He turned to face her fully, setting down the axe. "You were cast out for showing mercy. I walked away from a war that demanded I stop seeing the enemy as people. We have both already broken the rules that society tried to force on us. This is different. This is more dangerous. I know that too. And if you tell me you feel nothing, if you tell me I am alone in this, I will never speak of it again. We will remain as we are, friends and nothing more." But if there is even a chance that you feel what I feel, then I had to tell you. I had to let you know that you are not alone." Tears glistened in Zara's eyes. "I do feel it. I have felt it for weeks now, and I have been so afraid. Because if we do this, if we allow ourselves to care for each other that way, we can never go back. We will be marked forever as outsiders, neither fully part of your world nor mine. Then we will make our own world, here on this homestead with the others. We will build something new, something that does not care about old hatreds and prejudices." You make it sound so simple. It will not be simple. It will probably be the hardest thing either of us ever does. But Zara, I have fought in wars. I have faced down enemies on battlefields and made impossible choices in the heat of combat. And none of that was as terrifying as the thought of losing you without ever telling you how I feel. She was crying now, tears running freely down her green cheeks. "I am so afraid." "So am I." Vaughn reached up slowly, giving her time to pull away and gently wipe the tears from her face. "But I would rather be afraid with you than safe without you." Zara made a sound that was half laugh, half sob. Then she closed the distance between them and pressed her forehead to his chest. Vaughn wrapped his arms around her, holding her close, feeling her trembling against him. They stood like that for a long time, two outcasts clinging to each other as the sun set and the world grew dark around them. When they finally pulled apart, Zara looked up at him with an expression of such tender hope that Vaughn felt his breath catch. "What do we do now?" "Now we take it one day at a time. We see where this leads without rushing or forcing it, and we face whatever comes together." "Together," Zara repeated, as if testing the word. Then she smiled, and it was like watching the sun rise. "I like the sound of that." The other orcs noticed the change immediately, of course. Vaughn and Zara tried to be subtle, but the way they moved around each other, the soft glances and careful touches, were impossible to miss. To Vaughn's relief, the reactions were positive. Mira and Shala seemed pleased, exchanging knowing looks whenever Vaughn and Zara were in the same room. Rena simply nodded once, as if confirming something she had long suspected. Only Cora seemed concerned. She pulled Vaughn aside one morning while Zara was occupied in the kitchen. "This thing between you and Zara," she said without preamble. "It is serious. It is. You understand what you are risking, not just from humans but from other orcs as well. There are clans that would kill you both for this." "I understand. But I love her, Cora. I cannot change that, and I would not want to even if I could." Cora studied him for a long moment, her scarred face unreadable. Then, slowly, she nodded. "Zara has suffered much in her young life. She deserves happiness, whatever form that takes. If you are what makes her happy, then I will support you. But know this, if you hurt her, if you betray her trust or use her poorly, the threat from the town will be the least of your concerns. Do we understand each other?" "Perfectly." Vaughn met her gaze steadily, "And I would expect nothing less. She is lucky to have you watching out for her." "We all watch out for each other. It is how exiles survive." Cora turned to go, then paused. "For what it is worth, I think Zara is lucky too. You are a good man, Vaughn Prescott. There are not many of those in the world." Winter came early that year, bringing snow and cold winds that howled through the valley. The homestead was well prepared, with full stores of food and firewood, and the house proved warm and secure against the weather. The 5 orcs and 1 human settled into a comfortable routine, spending the long, dark evenings gathered around the fireplace, sharing stories and jokes, and slowly becoming something more than housemates. They were becoming a family. Vaughn and Zara's relationship deepened during those quiet winter months. They spent hours talking, learning about each other in ways that went beyond the surface. She told him about her childhood in the Orc clan, the pressure to be strong and fierce, the confusion she had felt when she found herself unable to hate humans the way she was supposed to. He told her about the war, about the friends he had lost and the choices that still haunted him, about his desperate hope that he could be something more than a weapon. They kissed for the first time during a snowstorm, standing together on the porch and watching the world turn white. It was gentle and tentative, both of them aware of how different they were, how many barriers they were crossing. But it was also perfect, a moment of connection that transcended species and prejudice and fear. "I love you," Zara whispered against his lips. "I love you too," Vaughn replied, and meant it with every fiber of his being. But winter could not last forever, and with spring came new troubles. A delegation from Greymark arrived at the homestead one morning. 6 men on horseback led by the mayor, a pompous individual named Harlow who had clearly come prepared for confrontation. Vaughn met them in the yard, with Cora and the others standing behind him on the porch. The message in their positioning was clear. He was not alone and they would stand with him. "Prescott," Mayor Harlow said, not bothering to dismount, "we have come to discuss your situation." "What situation would that be? Do not play stupid. You know exactly what I am talking about. You have orcs living on your land. The town council has met and decided this is unacceptable. You will send them away immediately or face the consequences." "And what consequences would those be?" Vaughn kept his voice calm, though anger simmered beneath the surface. "Economic sanctions to start. No one in Greymark will trade with you or sell you goods. You will be cut off from all commerce. If that does not persuade you, we will petition the regional magistrate to have your property seized for harboring dangerous individuals." "Dangerous individuals," Vaughn laughed bitterly. "These women have done nothing but work hard and keep to themselves. They are not a threat to anyone. They are orcs. That is threat enough." One of the other men spoke up, his hand resting on the sword at his belt. "We will not have monsters living so close to our town." "Then perhaps you should move your town," Cora said coldly from the porch. "We were here first." The man's face reddened. "How dare you speak to us, creature? You have no rights, no voice. You should be grateful we do not come here with torches and steel to drive you out." "Try it," Cora shot back. "See how far you get. Enough." Vaughn stepped between them, facing the mounted men. "I appreciate you taking the time to ride all the way out here to waste my morning, but my answer is no. These women stay. They have as much right to be here as anyone, and I will not turn them out because you have decided to make them scapegoats for your own fear and ignorance." Mayor Harlow's expression hardened. "Then you have chosen to stand against your own people. Let it be known that Vaughn Prescott is an enemy of Greymark and all decent folk. You will receive no aid from us, no trade, no support of any kind. And when the orcs show their true nature and turn on you, do not come crying to us for help. I would not dream of it. Now get off my land." The delegation left, but the threat hung heavy in the air. Vaughn turned to find Zara staring at him with stricken eyes. "You should not have done that," she said. "You should have agreed. We can leave, find somewhere else." "There is no somewhere else. There is only here, and I am not letting them drive you away. But they will make your life impossible. They will starve you out. Let them try." Vaughn climbed the porch steps and took her hands. "Zara, I meant what I said. We make our own world here. We do not bow to their hatred. This is because of me, because of us. No, this is because people are afraid of what they do not understand, and rather than try to learn, they choose to hate. That is not your fault. It is theirs." True to their word, the people of Greymark cut them off completely. Vaughn's trips to town yielded nothing but closed doors and hostile stares. He began traveling to more distant settlements, buying what they needed from communities that had not yet been poisoned by Greymark's influence. It was exhausting and expensive, but manageable. What worried him more was the incident 3 weeks later. Rena and Shala had gone hunting in the forest and returned with troubling news. They had found signs of someone following them, watching them. Boot prints that were clearly human, positioned in places that suggested surveillance rather than casual travel. "Someone is keeping track of our movements," Cora said that evening as they all gathered to discuss the situation. "They want to know our patterns, our routines." "Why?" Mira asked. "What purpose does that serve? Knowledge is power. If they know when we are most vulnerable, when we are separated or distracted, they can act more effectively." "Act how?" Zara's voice was small, frightened. Vaughn reached over and took her hand. "They are trying to intimidate us. Make us afraid so we will leave on our own. Or they are planning something more aggressive," Cora said grimly. "We should prepare for the possibility of an attack." The next week proved Cora right. Vaughn was working in the barn when he heard shouts from the house. He ran outside to find Zara and Mira standing in the yard, staring at the front door. Someone had nailed a crude drawing to the wood, an orc figure with a noose around its neck. Rage exploded in Vaughn's chest, hot and fierce. He tore the drawing down, crumpling it in his fist. "This has gone far enough." "What will you do?" Zara asked. "I am going to Greymark. I am going to make it very clear that this kind of harassment stops now." "That is exactly what they want. They want you angry and reckless, making mistakes. Then I will be careful. But I will not let them do this to you, to any of you. I will not let them terrorize you in your own home." Cora stepped forward. "If you are going, we go with you, all of us." "That is not a good idea." "It is the only idea that makes sense. You go alone, they might kill you and claim you attacked them first. We go together, we show strength. We show that we will not be intimidated." Vaughn wanted to argue, wanted to protect them from the ugliness that awaited in town, but he could see the determination in Cora's eyes, reflected in all their faces. They had been running and hiding for too long. It was time to stand. "All right, we go together. But at the first sign of real violence, we leave. I will not risk your lives for the sake of pride." They rode into Greymark the next day, all 6 of them on horses and a wagon, making no effort to hide or skulk. People stopped and stared as they passed, the shock on their faces almost comical. No one had expected the Orcs to simply walk into town in broad daylight. Vaughn led them to the center square and dismounted in front of the mayor's office. A crowd began to gather, muttering and pointing. He ignored them, striding up the steps and pounding on the door. Mayor Harlow opened it, his face going pale when he saw the gathering outside. "Prescott, what is the meaning of this?" "The meaning is that I am done with your games. Someone from this town came to my home and left a threatening message for my household. I am here to tell you and everyone else that such behavior will not be tolerated. I do not know what you are talking about. Do not insult my intelligence. You put the word out that we are to be harassed and intimidated. You turned the people of this town into a mob. Well, here we are. The monsters you have been so afraid of. Do we look like the enemy to you?" Vaughn gestured to where Zara and the others stood by the wagon. They looked nervous but resolute, their backs straight and their chins high. In that moment, Vaughn had never been more proud of anyone in his life. "They are Orcs," someone in the crowd shouted. "They do not belong here. Neither did my ancestors or yours or anyone else's if you go back far enough," Vaughn shot back. "This land belonged to no one before people came and claimed it. What gives you the right to decide who can and cannot live here? The right of being human," another voice called out. "Being human means showing compassion. It means judging people by their actions, not their appearance. These women have done nothing to harm anyone. They work hard, They keep to themselves, and they have been nothing but respectful to all of you. Yet you treat them like criminals simply because they look different. They are orcs, Mayor Harlow said. Our people have been at war with orcs for generations. How can we trust them? I was a soldier in that war, Vaughn said. I fought orcs on the battlefield. I killed them. And I am telling you that these women are not your enemy. The only enemy here is fear and ignorance, and you are feeding it. Pretty speech, a new voice said. Vaughn turned to see a grizzled man pushing through the crowd, a captain's insignia on his worn uniform. But words do not change facts. Orcs are dangerous. They raid and kill and destroy. You may have convinced yourself otherwise, but the rest of us know better. Then let me ask you something, Captain. If these orcs are so dangerous, why are they not attacking anyone? They have been living peacefully on my land for months. If they were the monsters you claim, would they not have shown it by now? The captain had no answer to that. The crowd muttered among themselves, some beginning to look uncertain. Vaughn pressed his advantage. I am not asking you to trust them immediately. I am asking you to give them a chance. Judge them by what they do, not what you think they might do. And in return, I ask only that you leave us alone. We are not bothering you. Extend us the same courtesy. And if we refuse, Mayor Harlow said, then this harassment continues and eventually someone will get hurt. Maybe it will be me. Maybe it will be one of the orcs. Maybe it will be someone from town who makes the mistake of coming to my land with violence in mind. Vaughn met the mayor's eyes steadily. I do not want anyone to get hurt, but I will protect my household by whatever means necessary. The choice is yours. The crowd was silent now, watching and waiting. Mayor Harlow looked around, gauging the mood, and Vaughn could see the calculation in his eyes. The mayor was a politician, and politicians understood pressure and consequences. Very well, Harlow said finally. I will put word out that your household is to be left alone, but in return, you and your orcs stay on your land. Do not come to town, do not interact with our people, and do not give us reason to reconsider. It was not acceptance, but it was a truce. Vaughn nodded. Agreed. Thank you for your time, Mayor. They left Greymark in silence, no one speaking until they were well out of sight of the town. Then Cora let out a long breath. That was either the bravest or the stupidest thing I have ever seen a human do. Probably both, Vaughn admitted. His hands were shaking now, the adrenaline draining away and leaving him exhausted. But it needed to be done. Zara rode up beside him, reaching out to touch his arm. You stood up for us, against your own people. You are my people, all of you. The people of Greymark are just neighbors who happen to live nearby. Still, what you did today, the risk you took, I do not have words for what it means to me. You do not need words. Vaughn managed a tired smile. Just keep being you, that is more than enough. The truce with Greymark held, though it was a fragile thing. The harassment stopped, but so did any contact at all. Vaughn made his supply runs to distant towns, and life on the homestead continued. Spring turned to summer, and the fields flourished under their care. And through it all, Vaughn and Zara's relationship grew stronger. They were careful about public displays, aware that even on their own land they might be watched, but in private moments they allowed themselves to be fully together. They talked about the future, about dreams and possibilities, about what it might mean to build a life together in a world that did not want them to exist. It was during one of these conversations, late at night with Zara curled against his side in his room, that Vaughn asked the question that had been building in his heart for weeks. Marry me. Zara went very still. What did you say? Marry me. I know there is no priest who would perform the ceremony, no law that would recognize it, but I do not care. I want you to be my wife, Zara. I want to spend the rest of my life with you, building something good together. Vaughn. Tears gathered in her eyes. Are you certain? Once we do this, there truly is no going back. We will be bound together in every way that matters. I have never been more certain of anything. I love you. I want to wake up beside you every morning and fall asleep with you every night. I want to face whatever comes, good or bad, as your husband. If you will have me, if I will have you, Zara laughed through her tears. You foolish, wonderful man, of course I will have you. Yes, yes, I will marry you. They kissed then, deep and passionate, sealing the promise between them. When they finally pulled apart, Zara was smiling so brightly it took Vaughn's breath away. When? She asked. As soon as we can arrange it. We will have our own ceremony with the others as witnesses. We do not need anyone's permission or approval, just each other and the promise we make. They told the others the next morning. Cora's expression was complicated, a mix of happiness and concern, but she embraced them both and offered her congratulations. Mira, Shala, and Rena were purely delighted, immediately beginning to plan what kind of celebration they could arrange. The ceremony took place a week later, on a clear summer evening with the sun setting behind the mountains. They gathered in the largest field, where the wheat was beginning to ripen, and the air smelled of growing things. Vaughn wore his old dress uniform, cleaned and mended, while Zara had made herself a simple white dress from fabric they had purchased on one of their distant supply runs. Cora officiated, speaking words in the old Orc tradition about bonds and commitment, about choosing family and standing together against the world. Vaughn and Zara exchanged vows they had written themselves, promising love and loyalty and partnership for as long as they both lived. I promise to stand with you always, Vaughn said, his voice thick with emotion. To protect you, to support you, to love you in all things. You are my heart, Zara, today and forever. I promise to be your partner in all things, Zara replied, tears streaming down her face. To share your burdens, to celebrate your joys, to build a life with you that is ours alone. You are my home, Vaughn, today and forever. They exchanged rings, simple bands that Cora had forged from silver in the barn's small smithy. When they kissed as husband and wife, the other Orcs cheered, and for that moment, everything was perfect. The world beyond their small valley did not matter. All that existed was the love between them and the family that surrounded them. They celebrated late into the night, eating the feast Mira had prepared and drinking wine that Shala had somehow procured. Stories were told, songs were sung, and laughter rang out across the fields. It was the happiest day of Vaughn's life, and when he finally fell asleep with Zara in his arms, he thought that perhaps they really could build something lasting here, something that would endure whatever challenges came their way. He should have known better. The attack came 3 weeks later in the dead of night when the house was dark and silent. Vaughn woke to the smell of smoke and Cora's shouting. He bolted upright, reaching for the sword he kept by the bed, and shook Zara awake. "What is happening?" she asked, groggy and confused. "Fire." "Get up, we need to move." They rushed downstairs to find the common room filling with smoke. Cora and the others were already there, coughing and covering their faces. Rena pointed toward the door. "Someone set fire to the barn, and I saw movement in the fields. We are surrounded." Vaughn's military training kicked in. He assessed the situation in seconds. Trapped in the house, enemies outside, smoke limiting visibility. They needed to get out, but doing so would expose them to whoever was attacking. "How many did you see?" he asked Rena. "At least a dozen, maybe more." "They have torches and weapons. The barn is a diversion. They want us to run outside, right into their hands." Vaughn moved to a window, peering out carefully. He could see figures moving in the darkness, silhouettes backlit by the burning barn. "We need another option." "The cellar," Zara said. There is a tunnel that leads out past the garden. My uncle used it during the border wars to escape if the house was ever attacked. I did not know about that. I found it 2 months ago while organizing the stores. I was going to tell you, but I forgot. Lucky you remembered now. Show me. They descended into the cellar, moving quickly through the stored goods to a back corner where Zara pushed aside a shelf to reveal a narrow opening in the wall. The tunnel beyond was dark and cramped, barely wide enough for one person at a time, but it was a way out. "I will go first," Vaughn said. "Cora, you bring up the rear. If anyone tries to follow us, stop them." "With pleasure." They crawled through the tunnel in single file, moving as quickly as they dared in the darkness. Vaughn could hear shouts from above as the attackers realized the house was empty, heard the crash of doors being broken down. They were running out of time. The tunnel emerged in Mira's garden, hidden behind a false rock. Vaughn pushed it aside and climbed out, helping the others up after him. The barn was fully engulfed now, flames reaching toward the sky, and by its light he could see men searching the yard and outbuildings. "We need to get to the forest," he whispered. "Stay low and move quietly." They made it to the tree line without being spotted, but as they pushed into the woods, a shout went up behind them. They had been seen. The chase was on. Vaughn led them deeper into the forest, using every trick he knew to throw off pursuit. They crossed streams to hide their scent, climbed over rocky areas that would not show tracks, doubled back on their own path to confuse followers. But their pursuers were persistent, and the sound of dogs baying in the distance told Vaughn they had brought tracking hounds. "We cannot outrun them forever," Cora panted as they paused to catch their breath. "We need to make a stand. Not here. There is a ravine about a mile north. If we can reach it, we will have defensible ground." They ran on, pushing through underbrush and leaping over fallen logs. Zara stumbled, and Vaughn caught her, practically carrying her for the last 100 yards until they reached the ravine. It was a deep cut in the earth with steep sides and a narrow opening at one end, a natural bottleneck that would force their attackers to come at them only a few at a time. "Positions," Vaughn ordered, falling back into the command voice from his military days. "Cora, Shala, Rena, take the high ground on either side. Use rocks if you have nothing else. Mira, Zara, stay back. I will hold the entrance." "You cannot fight them all alone," Zara protested. "I have done it before. Trust me." The first attackers arrived moments later, torches held high, their faces twisted with hatred and fear. Vaughn recognized several of them from Greymark, including the man who had threatened him outside the mayor's office. "End of the line, Prescott," the man called. "Give up the Orcs and we will let you walk away. No deal. Go home before someone gets hurt. You are outnumbered. You have no chance." "I have had no chance before. It did not stop me then either." The man snarled and gestured to his companions. "Take them." They came in a rush, 6 men trying to force their way through the narrow entrance. Vaughn met them with the sword he had carried through 100 battles, his body moving with practiced efficiency. He was not trying to kill, just disable and drive back, but these men were not trained soldiers. They were farmers and merchants playing at being warriors, and they fell back quickly under his assault. Above, Cora and the others rained down rocks and debris, forcing the attackers to keep their heads down. The combination of terrain and skill made their small group far more effective than their numbers suggested, and after several minutes of futile attacks, the men from Greymark pulled back to regroup. "This is not working," one of them said loudly enough for Vaughn to hear. "We need to smoke them out." "No," another voice argued. "We are here to drive off the Orcs, not commit murder. They are monsters. It is not murder." "Some of them are monsters. Prescott is human. The law will come down on us if we kill him." Vaughn listened to them argue, using the time to catch his breath and assess their situation. They were relatively safe for the moment, but they could not stay here forever. Eventually, the attackers would find a way around or simply wait them out. They needed a different solution. "Vaughn," Zara whispered from behind him, "I have an idea. I am listening. Let me talk to them. Let me explain." "Absolutely not. It is too dangerous. More dangerous than this. We cannot fight forever. Maybe if they understand, if they see that we are not their enemy, they will stop." "These are not rational people. They are not going to listen to reason. But they might listen to me." Zara moved up beside him, her expression determined. "Please, let me try." Every instinct Vaughn had screamed against it, but he could see the conviction in her eyes, and perhaps she was right. Perhaps words could accomplish what violence could not. "All right. But I stay with you. If anything goes wrong, we pull back immediately." Together, they moved to the entrance of the ravine. The men from Greymark tensed, weapons rising, but Vaughn raised his hands in a gesture of peace. "We want to talk," he called out. "Nothing to talk about," the lead man replied. "You surrender the Orcs or we come in and take them." "You have tried that. It did not work." Vaughn gestured to Zara. "This is my wife. Her name is Zara. Before you attack again, I would like you to hear her story." Zara stepped forward, and Vaughn saw several of the men recoil, their fear obvious. But she held her ground, her voice steady as she spoke. "My name is Zara. I was cast out from my clan for showing mercy to a human child during a raid. I helped her escape, chose her life over the loyalty of my people, and for that I was exiled. I have been hunted, chained, and tortured by humans who saw me as nothing more than a monster. But I am not a monster. I am just a person trying to survive in a world that hates me for what I am rather than who I am." "Words," someone muttered. "Just words." "Yes, they are words, but they are true words." Zara's voice grew stronger. "Look at me. Really look at me. I have green skin and tusks. I am an orc. But I also cook and clean and tend a garden. I laugh at jokes and cry at sad stories. I fell in love with a human man who saw past what I look like to who I really am. How does that make me a monster?" "Your people kill ours," the lead man said, but his voice was less certain now. "And your people kill mine. The cycle of violence goes round and round, generation after generation, and all it does is create more pain. Vaughn was a soldier. He killed orcs in the war. I should hate him for that, should I not? But I do not, because I understand that he was a person caught up in something larger than himself, trying to survive just like I am trying to survive." The men were listening now, really listening, and Vaughn felt a flicker of hope. Zara was reaching them in a way his words never could. "We are not asking you to love us," Zara continued. "We are not even asking you to like us. We are just asking you to leave us alone. We have a home, a small piece of land where we work hard and bother no one. Is that so terrible? Does our existence threaten you so much that you would burn our home and drive us into the forest? You do not understand," a woman's voice called from the back of the group. "We have children, families. How can we feel safe knowing orcs live so close? I understand better than you know. I grew up being taught that humans were monsters who would kill me if they had the chance. And some humans proved that teaching right. But Vaughn proved it wrong. He showed me that humans can be kind and compassionate and brave. He showed me that the stories we tell about each other are not always true." Zara's voice cracked with emotion. "Please, do not let the stories you have heard blind you to what is right in front of you. We are not your enemy. We just want to live in peace." Silence fell over the ravine. The men from Greymark looked at each other, uncertainty written across their faces. The lead man lowered his weapon slowly, his expression troubled. "This is not how it was supposed to be," he said quietly. "You were supposed to be monsters. It was supposed to be simple." Nothing is ever simple, Vaughn said. But that does not mean we cannot try to do the right thing. Go home. Tell everyone what you heard here tonight. Tell them that we offer no threat, only a wish to be left in peace. And maybe, just maybe, we can find a way to coexist. The men withdrew, disappearing back into the forest, and Vaughn allowed himself to hope that perhaps the crisis had passed. But as dawn broke and they made their way back to the homestead, that hope died. The barn was a blackened ruin. The house had been vandalized, and someone had torn up Mira's garden. Months of work lay in ruins around them. Zara stood in the middle of the devastation and cried. Vaughn held her, wishing he had words that could fix this, knowing that no words existed that could undo what had been done. "We will rebuild," he said finally. "It will take time, but we will rebuild. This is our home, and we will not let them drive us away." "How can you be sure they will not come back?" Zara asked. "I cannot be sure, but I have to believe that what you said tonight made a difference, that at least some of them heard you and understood." He was right, though not in the way he expected. Over the following days, as they began the work of cleaning up and rebuilding, visitors started arriving. Not mobs with torches, but individuals and small families from Greymark and the surrounding farms. They came bearing food and supplies, materials for rebuilding the barn, seedlings to replace Mira's destroyed garden. The first to arrive was the woman who had called out during the confrontation, the one who had asked about her children. She came alone, leading a cart full of lumber. "I am Martha Donovan," she said to Vaughn. "I was there that night. I heard what your wife said. And she was right. You are people trying to live your lives same as us. I spoke to my husband after, told him what I heard. He agreed that what we did was wrong. This lumber, it is our way of apologizing, of trying to make things right." More came after Martha. Not everyone from Greymark, not even most, but enough. Enough to matter. They worked alongside Vaughn and the Orcs, raising a new barn that was actually sturdier than the old one. They replanted the garden, helped repair the damage to the house, and slowly, tentatively, began to build bridges between the two communities. It was not perfect. There were still people who refused to accept the Orcs, who muttered about monsters and unnatural alliances. But those voices grew quieter as weeks turned to months, and the homestead continued to operate peacefully. The Orcs proved themselves through their actions, working hard and treating their new neighbors with respect, and gradually, the fear began to fade. One evening in late autumn, nearly a year after Vaughn had first found those chains behind the mercenary wagon, he stood on his porch and looked out over the valley. The fields were ready for harvest. The new barn stood strong against the sky, and smoke rose from a dozen chimneys in the valley below where new homes had been built by families who no longer feared having Orc neighbors. Zara emerged from the house and wrapped her arms around him from behind. "What are you thinking about? About how far we have come? About how many times I thought we would not make it, but we did. We did it together. You and me and the others. That made all the difference." Vaughn turned in her arms to face her, struck once again by how beautiful she was, by how lucky he was to have her in his life. "I love you. I do not say it enough, but I do. You say it every day in 100 different ways. I hear it when you bring me tea in the morning, when you help Mira with the heavy lifting, when you stand up to angry mobs to protect us. I hear it in everything you do. Still, I love you. I want to make sure you never doubt that. I never do." Zara reached up and touched his face, her fingers gentle. "You gave me everything, Vaughn. A home, a family, a future. You showed me that love could cross any barrier, overcome any prejudice. You gave me hope. You gave me the same. Before I found you, I was just drifting, trying to outrun my past. You gave me a reason to stop running. You gave me something worth fighting for. They kissed, soft and slow, and when they pulled apart, Vaughn realized Cora was standing in the doorway, watching them with an amused expression. "You two are disgustingly sweet, you know that? Jealous?" Vaughn asked. "Hardly. But I did want to tell you there is news from town. Mayor Harlow is planning a harvest festival and we have been invited. All of us. All of us. Apparently, Martha Donovan and some of the other families have been pushing for it. They want the whole community to come together, human and orc alike." Vaughn looked at Zara, saw the wonder and hope in her eyes, and felt his heart swell. "Then I think we should go." The festival took place in the central square of Greymark on a bright, clear day when the leaves were just beginning to turn gold and red. Tables had been set up laden with food. Musicians played cheerful tunes, and children ran through the crowds playing games. It was a scene of such normal, peaceful community that Vaughn had to stop for a moment and simply take it in. The orcs were nervous at first, staying close together and watching the humans warily. But Martha and her allies made a point of welcoming them, introducing them to others, drawing them into conversations and activities. Slowly, the tension began to ease. Vaughn watched Zara laugh at something Martha said, watched Rena demonstrate her archery skills to a group of impressed farmers, watched Mira teach some of the local women about the herbs she grew. This was what he had hoped for, what they had fought for. Not complete acceptance, perhaps, but a beginning, a chance. Mayor Harlow approached, looking uncomfortable but determined. "Prescott, I wanted to speak with you, Mayor. I owe you an apology. I let fear guide my decisions and I was wrong. What happened to your homestead, the attack, that was my fault. My rhetoric encouraged it. It was your fault," Vaughn agreed. "But you are here now trying to make it right. That counts for something. I have been speaking with the town council. We would like to offer compensation for the damages, and we would like to formally welcome your household to the community, if you are willing." It was more than Vaughn had expected, more than he had dared to hope for. He extended his hand, and after a moment Harlow shook it. "We are willing." "Thank you, Mayor." As the sun set and the festival continued, Vaughn found himself standing with Zara at the edge of the square, watching the mingling crowd. Humans and orcs, not fully integrated but no longer enemies. It was imperfect and fragile, but it was real. "Did you ever imagine this?" Zara asked. "When you found us in those chains, did you imagine we would end up here?" "No. I thought I was just freeing some prisoners, doing one good thing before I disappeared into obscurity. I had no idea it would lead to all of this. Are you glad it did?" Vaughn looked at his wife, at the woman who had transformed his life and given him purpose, and smiled. "Glad does not begin to cover it. Finding you, building a life with you, being part of something larger than myself, it has been the greatest honor of my life. I would not change a single moment. Not even the scary parts, the attack, the confrontation, not even those, because they led us here, to this moment, to this future." Zara leaned her head against his shoulder, and they stood together as the stars began to appear overhead. Around them, the festival continued, the sound of laughter and music filling the air. It was a sound of hope, of possibility, of a world slowly learning that the old hatreds did not have to define the future. In the months that followed, the integration continued. Some families from Greymark began hiring orc workers for their farms. Trade opened up between the communities. Interspecies friendships formed, tentative at first but growing stronger with time. It was not perfect, and there were setbacks and difficulties, but the overall trend was positive. Vaughn and Zara's homestead became something of a symbol, proof that different peoples could live and work together successfully. Visitors came from other regions to see it for themselves, and some even tried to replicate the model in their own communities. 2 years after that night in the ravine, Zara told Vaughn she was pregnant. The news filled him with a joy so profound he could barely speak. A child, part human and part orc, a living symbol of their love and the bridges they had built. It terrified him and thrilled him in equal measure. "Are you scared?" Zara asked, watching his face. "Terrified, but also happier than I have ever been. We are going to be parents. We are going to be parents," she repeated, laughing. "This is really happening. It really is." The baby was born in early spring, delivered by Mira with half the valley waiting anxiously outside. It was a girl, perfect and beautiful, with her mother's green skin and her father's eyes. They named her Hope, because that was what she represented. Vaughn held his daughter and wept, overwhelmed by the weight of this tiny life that depended on him. He thought about the path that had led here, about the chains and the fire and the fear. He thought about the choice he had made to free 5 prisoners, never imagining where that choice would lead. And he realized that every scar, every difficult moment, every battle and confrontation had been worth it. Because they had led him to this. A family, a home, a future built on love rather than hate. Outside, the sun rose over the valley, painting the world in gold and pink. Zara dozed in the bed, exhausted but smiling. Cora and the others peeked in through the door, their faces alight with joy. Neighbors from both communities waited in the yard, human and orc together, united in their happiness for the new arrival. It was not the ending Vaughn had imagined when he started this journey. It was so much better. It was a beginning, the first chapter of a new story being written in a world slowly learning to choose understanding over fear. Vaughn kissed his daughter's forehead and made her a silent promise. She would grow up in a world that was better than the one he had known. She would know love and acceptance, would never have to choose between different parts of her heritage. She would be the future, proof that different peoples could come together and create something beautiful. "Welcome to the world, Hope," he whispered. "We have been waiting for you." And in that moment, holding his daughter with his wife beside him and his found family surrounding them, Vaughn Prescott was truly at peace.